The Invisible Revolution: How Black Women Are Shattering America's Entrepreneurial Glass Ceiling. Good morning. Today, I stand before you humbled and electrified by a conversation that fundamentally altered my understanding of American entrepreneurship. Just last month, I had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Natasha Swinton, a visionary researcher, fierce advocate, and brilliant strategist whose groundbreaking work has illuminated what might be the most powerful yet underreported economic phenomenon of our time. Natasha isn't just documenting history, she's helping rewrite it. Through her relentless pursuit of economic justice and data driven advocacy, she has helped redirect millions of dollars in funding toward entrepreneurs who have been systematically overlooked. Her work doesn't just change statistics, it transforms lives, communities, and ultimately our collective future. What Natasha shared with me was nothing short of revolutionary, and I'm not using that word lightly. We've all internalized a particular story about entrepreneurship in America, haven't we? The narrative we're fed through media, business schools, and venture capital circles features predictable characters: young white men in hoodies launching tech startups from Silicon Valley garages, fueled by millions in venture capital and an unshakable belief in their own exceptionalism. This story is so deeply embedded in our collective consciousness that it has become the default template for how we understand business creation. It shapes who gets funded, who gets celebrated, and who gets to call themselves entrepreneurs. But what if I told you this story is fundamentally incomplete? What if I told you that the most dynamic entrepreneurial force in America today looks nothing like that stereotype? What if I told you that Black women, yes, Black women are launching businesses at rates that outpace nearly every other demographic group in America? And they're doing it despite facing some of the most significant structural barriers in our economy. This isn't just surprising, it is revolutionary, and it challenges everything we think we know about entrepreneurship, resilience, and the future of our economy. Let these numbers sink in for a moment. In 2024, nearly half of all new businesses in America were started by women. And within that group, Black women were more likely to launch new ventures than their male counterparts. This surge is happening even as Black women continue to receive a disproportionately small share of venture capital funding, less than 3% of all VC dollars. Let that sink in for a moment. The group receiving the least support is showing the greatest entrepreneurial drive. When Natasha shared these statistics with me, I was stunned, not just by the numbers themselves, but by what they reveal about resilience, innovation, and the untapped potential that exists when we look beyond conventional wisdom. The story of Black women entrepreneurs isn't just about overcoming obstacles, though there are plenty of those. It's about fundamentally reimagining what entrepreneurship can be, who it's for, and how it can transform communities. Let me share three key insights from my conversation with Natasha that illuminate this remarkable phenomenon. First, Black women are driving a powerful wave of entrepreneurship despite systemic obstacles such as limited access to capital and recent job losses. This isn't happening because the path is easy. It's happening despite the path being extraordinarily difficult. Second, data driven advocacy, exemplified by trailblazers like Catherine Finney, proves that intentional action can close opportunity gaps and lead to transformative change for entire communities. And third, the current era offers unprecedented opportunities for young Black professionals. With increased education and workforce experience among Millennial and Gen Z women fueling business creation, now is the time to leverage these gains into sustainable success. Let's dive deeper into each of these insights, starting with a remarkable story that Natasha shared with me. Imagine being Catherine Finney in the early 2000s. You're brilliant, ambitious, and innovative, with a background in epidemiology that gives you a unique perspective on analyzing data patterns. You launch a wildly successful blog called The Budget Fashionista that attracts millions of readers. But when you look around the digital entrepreneurship space, you notice something troubling. Almost no one looks like you. Instead of accepting this as just the way things are, Finney does something revolutionary. She applies her data analysis skills to quantify exactly how bad the disparity is. Through her initiative Project Diane, she documents that less than 3% of venture capital funding goes to Black female founders despite their high rates of business creation. But Finney doesn't stop at identifying the problem. She uses this data as leverage with funders. She builds Digital Undivided, a nonprofit supporting underrepresented tech founders. And ultimately, she creates Genius Guild, which has secured over $100 million for more than 2,500 Black woman owned businesses nationwide. Think about that impact. One woman, armed with data and determination, redirected $100 million and empowered thousands of entrepreneurs. She didn't just navigate the system, she changed it. What's remarkable about Finney's approach is that she didn't just identify a problem, she quantified it, made it impossible to ignore, and then created solutions. This strategy of using data as both shield and sword offers a powerful template for addressing systemic inequities. But the story doesn't end with established leaders like Finney. In fact, some of the most exciting developments are happening among younger entrepreneurs. In recent years, Millennial and Gen Z Black women have led an unprecedented rise in new business formation across service industries like healthcare, social assistance, retail, and community services. These founders often lack inherited wealth or established networks compared to older generations or other demographics. They also face higher unemployment volatility, losing over 106,000 jobs collectively just last April alone. Yet, despite these challenges, or perhaps because of them, they found innovative ways to succeed. They've leveraged higher educational attainment and workforce experience unique to their generation. They've utilized digital platforms and social media for marketing in ways that bypass traditional gatekeepers. And they've formed peer support networks, both online and offline, that provide the social capital that institutional investors often withhold. The results speak for themselves. Women now start nearly half 49% of all US businesses. And among AAPI and Black owned firms, they're more likely to be led by females than males as of 2024. This signals a generational shift toward inclusive entrepreneurship that is reshaping the American business landscape. These younger generations entered adulthood during an era emphasizing both diversity and inclusion initiatives at work and economic uncertainty post pandemic, a combination that spurred many into self employment out of both necessity and ambition. But perhaps the most striking example of resilience comes from how Black women have responded to economic adversity. Despite national employment gains elsewhere in April 2025, over 106,000 jobs held by Black women disappeared, the largest loss among any demographic group. But instead of despairing, many responded by launching their own ventures. When traditional employers slowed or halted hiring amid economic shifts that impacted minority workers first, many Black women pivoted quickly into consulting and freelance roles. They tapped microloans and community based crowdfunding when conventional lenders declined them due to perceived risk. The outcome? A measurable uptick in new small business registrations immediately following mass layoffs, even outpacing other groups' recovery rates. The COVID pandemic exposed vulnerabilities, but also accelerated digital adoption and remote work skills among working age professionals, including those forced out who then became entrepreneurs almost overnight. These women turned adversity into opportunity on both individual and family levels and broader community scales via resource sharing models and new mutual aid networks. This demonstrates a resilience and adaptability that offers actionable inspiration for anyone facing career disruption today. So, what does all this mean? Why should you care about this invisible revolution? Because it fundamentally challenges what we think we know about entrepreneurship, innovation, and economic resilience. The conventional wisdom tells us that entrepreneurship is primarily about individual achievement, the lone genius with a brilliant idea who disrupts an industry through sheer force of will. But the story of Black women entrepreneurs challenges this narrative in fundamental ways. What we're seeing instead is a form of entrepreneurship that's deeply communal, that's as focused on lifting others as it is on individual success. It's entrepreneurship as a form of resistance, as a way of creating economic opportunities where none existed before. This isn't just a feel good story about overcoming obstacles, it's a radical reimagining of what business creation can be and who it can serve. And it raises profound questions about our economic systems and assumptions. If Black women can achieve this much with so little institutional support, imagine what might be possible if we leveled the playing field. Imagine the innovations, the jobs, the wealth creation that could occur if we remove the structural barriers that make entrepreneurship so much harder for some groups than others. The success of Black women entrepreneurs, despite these barriers, doesn't excuse the barriers, it indicts them. It reveals how much talent and potential we're squandering through systems that allocate opportunity based on demographics rather than merit. As Natasha powerfully stated during our interview, the revolution in entrepreneurship isn't waiting for venture capital to notice. It's already underway in beauty salons and home offices, in co working spaces and community centers. It's being led by women who saw closed doors and built their own houses instead. So I challenge you today, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue to accept the conventional wisdom about who entrepreneurs are and what they look like, or will you become part of this revolution? If you're an investor, will you examine your portfolio and ask yourself who you're overlooking? If you're a business leader, will you reconsider your procurement policies to include more diverse suppliers? If you're an entrepreneur yourself, will you expand your network to include those who don't share your background or experiences? And if you're someone who has been told explicitly or implicitly that entrepreneurship isn't for people like you, I hope this talk gives you permission to ignore that message completely. Because the future of entrepreneurship isn't in Silicon Valley garages, it's in the determined efforts of those who've been told they don't belong but build anyway. It's in the collective power of communities that pool resources when institutions fail them. And it's in the innovative spirit that turns obstacles into opportunities. The invisible revolution is already here. The only question is, will you join it? Thank you.